Welcome back to the Morning Edition. Casey Kendrick, honored to have with us this morning the center manager for Stillwater, and that, of course, is Norman McNickel. And Norman, certainly a pleasure to have you with us. How are you guys holding up down at the city right now?
It's been pretty frantic for the last couple of weeks.
It has, but it is interesting. I don't know. After a while, I'm sure there's some fatigue, and I've heard the term COVID fatigue, and it's an interesting term. But the decisions you guys are making are obviously important decisions for the benefit of the health of people. That's got to, in some ways, it's got to be beneficial. And I know you get criticized for it often, but it's got to feel good to know that what you guys are doing right now is obviously extremely important.
Well, it is, and that is the whole goal. There's two goals in this whole thing, and that is to protect our citizens from getting this virus because you and I were talking before we went on the air. 32% of the people that are getting this in Oklahoma end up in the hospital.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty good size number. The other is to not overwhelm the medical community. I watched a news program Sunday night that it was just scare the heck out of you. It
Yeah.
up northeast and what's going on there and how overwhelmed they are and the fact that they're building hospital beds inside of stadiums and warehouses and that's pretty sobering.
Well, and then for them to, make the statements, we're basically having to decide who we give a chance to and who we don't, based on who we think has a better chance of surviving. It is truly crazy, and fortunately, we're not there at all yet. Doesn't mean we can't get there, but we're not there yet. So, having said that, you guys did go to a shelter in place starting this morning. First off, let's talk about what exactly does that mean?
We would really appreciate it if you don't have to be out, if you're not in an essential position, just stay home.
Yeah.
Let's get this thing knocked down in a shorter term than what it would take if we just continue to allow complete movement. It is not pleasant. My wife is going stir crazy. I have gotten her out in the evenings and we've just driven around, not stopped anywhere, but just driven around just to get a different view. Stay home, take care of your loved ones, and be healthy.
So, safer at home versus shelter in place. What really happens differently there?
Well, there's a couple of things. One, shelter in place, just using that term opens up businesses here and individuals to some federal benefits they would not otherwise be eligible for. And they're fairly significant. There are 0% loans for businesses where they can pay their employees, and what they pay their employees or what they pay in rent or mortgage is eventually forgiven out of anywhere from a 0% to a 2% loan. That's pretty significant. We realize that these orders affect people's livelihoods. It affects their lives. It affects their ability to move around. It affects where they can go and what they can obtain. That's some pretty serious stuff, but so is this virus.
Yeah, no doubt it is. And so, with that being said, talk about, I've seen Oklahoma City has put out, look, we're not going to check you for papers, see if you've got documentation that means that gives you credentials to be on the streets. But they did make the announcement that there are potential fines and imprisonment if not obeyed. I mean, again, is this one of those things you put out there and go, okay, let's see if people are going to heed the warning, and we're not going to be aggressive with it from a standpoint. We're not arresting everybody on the streets. But if it is still not where it needs to be, at least gives you the leverage to put out, okay, we're serious about this, and we do have the ability to go a step further if we need to.
Oh, we said exactly that last night.
Okay.
You don't need a permit to travel. You don't need a letter in your car. I don't know how these rumors get started, but they're pretty prolific.
Yeah.
But you have a gathering of 10 or more people, and there's a complaint, we're going to come visit with you. And there is the potential of each person receiving a $560 fine.
Wow. So it is there. Okay, so having said that, why? So now we know what it is. Why the need besides the loan? Is the threat greater right now? Was there some reason beyond just the loans and the federal benefits?
If you look at the per capita numbers in Payne County, I mean, you look at the numbers in Oklahoma County, which are up over 100 and some, and you look at Payne County, which I think yesterday we're at 17, you think, well, you know, Oklahoma County's a lot worse off. But when you look at it on a per capita basis, we're head and shoulders above them in terms of the infection rate. And regardless of what you're hearing, testing is still way behind the curve.
Yeah.
Not the fault of the hospitals, not the fault of the doctors. It's a matter of getting the test kits and getting them tested. That's still a problem. Hopefully one that is starting to be solved.
And do you get a sense of that? I know this is more of a Stillwater Medical Center question, but are you getting a sense that maybe the masks and maybe the, you know, some of that sort of things are becoming just at least a little more readily available?
They are, fortunately. There's still some problems. We're having problems getting N95 masks, but probably, it's more important for the medical folks to have those than it is for us. Those that we have, we've found a way to disinfect, stretch their life, and actually put another cotton mask over the top of the N95, try to stretch the life of those things. As we mentioned last night, we've got 31 of our employees in quarantine. So we have gone to full PPE when people are in contact, for instance, in the jail. Frankly, lesson learned. It's probably something we should have been doing all along. But again, those supplies are still, being able to get them is kind of sketchy.
Yeah, still not as readily available as necessary. We're going to take a break. I want to come back. Got lots of questions. We want to talk a little bit about some of the information numbers that are out there. Just kind of talk about some of the decision making that might be easier if some of that information was better known. We'll take a quick break. Come back. We'll continue with the morning edition right after this. Back with the morning edition, joined by Norman McNickel, the city manager for Stillwater. Certainly appreciate that. He's going to join us for the next several weeks, trying to give us as much information as possible. And so, all right, Norman, so let's talk. This is something you probably don't want to even completely touch on, but I'm going to throw it out there and let you nibble on it and see what you want to do with it. We need a little bit of good news, right? And so we're all looking for that little nugget of good information. Well, I was told that the Stillwater Medical Center, knowing what was coming to some degree, kind of paying attention, went out and prepared better than, and this is not a knock on other hospitals, but it is a compliment to our hospital. Losing money in some of the decisions that they were making, knowing though that for the best of our community, we have got to do this. They're not doing elective surgeries. They're not. Somebody told me close to the hospital, hemorrhaging money was what they said.
And so is the city.
And because exactly, but yet they knew they needed certain things, and they turned 6 negative pressure ISO rooms into 18. They've done some things to try to prepare and be ready, and I don't know. I think that's obviously very commendable as somebody who we all may end up there someday. So obviously we're glad. Appreciate what they've done so far.
Absolutely, and they have been good to us in terms of information where they can give it. HIPAA gets in the way of some of that, which is kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
But we are in constant contact with them, and we provide them information as well. So the cooperation between the university, the city, the Stillwater Medical Center, and others has just been fantastic, and those lines of communication are wide open.
It's interesting though, and look, I know you are pretty intuitive and resourceful. When you need to know a number, I have a feeling you find a way, and you've got enough people that you can get some numbers. But those numbers are not then allowed by you to be able to present them. when you're making decisions and things are happening, if you could say, well, look, this is the reason we're doing this. We've got 10 cases in Stillwater, we know, but we had two. Whatever the case may be, if the information you were privy to, which helps you make decisions, was allowed to be public, things might be a little easier sometimes. But unfortunately, if we've learned anything in this from the state level down, our line of communications are not what they probably need to be.
They're not, and it is frustrating to look at what is available publicly in other states in terms of rather than just reporting by county, they're reporting by city, and that I think helps a great deal, not only in the decision-making process for the city, but for citizens to be able to look and say, hey, Crum, Texas, little bitty place, it's got one case. Outside of Denton, it's got a whole lot of cases, and so I think that decision-making tool would be much easier if we did that here. Whys of it, I don't know. You'd have to ask the state health department. We have voiced our objections.
Well, and again, there's pressure now on the governor to go further with his stance on this as well, and still seems to be slow in coming there for whatever reason. So let me ask you this, though. With what is reported in Payne County, and I don't even haven't seen the number, I can't even remember, it was a 16, 17 yesterday?
I think it's 17, seems like.
With what you guys have done this so far, and knowing what was coming and how rapidly it was coming in certain areas, do you feel, even though per capita the number's high, it's not 100, and we don't have every ventilator occupied in Stillwater. Do you feel better or worse than you thought you would at this point?
Somewhat optimistic, although the medical professionals are telling us that number is probably much higher. If we had more widely available testing, we would probably know that there's quite a few more. What that number is speculation.
Yeah.
But if you look at Payne County and you look at other counties who waited a lot longer than we did to do anything, their numbers have risen faster and higher than our numbers. So we believe that our citizens, there's a good number of our citizens that are paying attention and doing what they need to do and protecting themselves and their families, and we're appreciative of that. So the whole information thing is, I think in the analysis of this, when it's over, that hopefully there will be some decisions made that, God forbid this happens again, might change in the future. Are we
delaying the inevitable? Are we delaying it to not even have it happen? I know that's an impossible question, but in your mind, is it just a matter of time before we start seeing the same concerns with maybe the number of potential people in ICU here, and do we have enough space? Are we delaying it? Are we ridding ourselves of it? Do we know? We have any idea?
It depends on who you talk to. Certainly our medical folks are still concerned. If you look on a national basis, you've got individuals who say, hey, this looks like it's not going to be as bad as we thought it was going to be. But then if you look again at the situation in the Northeast, it certainly looks as though it's as bad as what people predicted. We pay attention to our local medical experts, and those decisions are predicated on what they're telling us, and I think that's the best we can do.
Yeah, and obviously, again, everything depends on which broadcast you're watching as to whether the sky is falling or no, we're going to be okay here. I will say this, I said this before, this is not to make light of the coronavirus at all, because of the highly contagious nature of it and the fact that we have so many people on ventilators and there's not enough of those. But having said that, we had 60,000 people die from October of last year to February of this year, 5-month period from flu. If you extrapolated that over the full year, it's going to be about 40,000. They're speculating 100 to 200,000 will die of coronavirus. It's very similar in the total numbers. The contagious nature of it and the way we have to go about it, or the numbers would be much greater. But my point is, I think people got to be careful how much information they consume and how scared they can allow themselves to get.
They do, and certainly we're aware at the city that there are divergent opinions on this whole thing.
Sure.
And again, we're listening to the local experts, and I think that's the best we can do.
Well, it's the prudent thing to do. I mean, as a non-expert in that particular field, you have to. I mean, the president's doing the same thing. He's obviously not an expert, and he may not be listening all the time to his people, but he's got people in his ear that do have much better understanding. So, anything we missed? Shelter in place, and that goes in effect until April 16th.
Till the 16th to be reevaluated.
Yeah.
The one thing I would like to add is the parks are open. Please don't use the playground equipment. Don't let your children use the playground equipment. There's no way we can sterilize it. Same goes through for basketball and tennis courts. Don't use them, please. There is some question now and again, open to debate, that strenuous exercise puts more of the disease in the air. So,
Wow. Yeah. Again, just we learn something every day, right?
we do. And you know, another thing that people just don't get, and the reason we have 31 people in quarantine that work for the city, is you can be asymptomatic and be spreading it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. That is definitely a concern for sure. Thanks for the time.
Thank you.
Best of luck for the rest of the week, and
Thank
we'll
you.
see you a week from today. We'll see you guys after the break. Take a quick time out. We'll be back right after this.